cut down one of the trees to count the rings, found fingerprints instead. But let me start where the file starts, with the surveyor who wouldn't stop washing his hands. The folder came to me on a Thursday. No classification stamp, just a location code. Sector 19, Yakutsk, 1979 BIO. The kind of designation that means Forestry Department, Ecological Survey, routine environmental documentation. Boring work, safe work. The folder was thin, 8 pages, but the paper, I need you to understand about the paper. It was standard Soviet stock, the cheap wood pulp kind that yellows quickly, but someone had handled it excessively. The edges were soft, degraded by what looked like moisture or sweat. The pages stuck together slightly, like they'd been separated and restacked many times by nervous fingers. Inside, the first page was a personnel incident report dated October 14, 1979. Survey Team 7 operating in the Verkhoyansk Range, northeastern Yakutia. Remote forestry assessment. Lead surveyor, Victor Osin, 34, 8 years experience. The report stated that Osin was found by his team at 0430, outside his tent, scrubbing his hands raw with snow and pine needles. When approached, he reportedly said, "I touched them. I touched all of them. I can still feel the whorls." Medical evaluation noted tissue damage consistent with severe frostbite and self-inflicted abrasion. Subject was sedated and evacuated by helicopter to Yakutsk Regional Hospital. Psychological assessment pending. The incident commander, some deputy forestry minister whose name I've already forgotten, noted in the margin. Subject kept asking if anyone else had noticed. "The pattern?" he said. "Did you see the pattern?" No explanation given. Recommend standard stress leave protocol. Standard stress leave. That's what they always recommend when they don't want to look closer. Page 2 was the medical report. Dr. Anya Volkova, psychiatric evaluation, October 16th. She wrote with the careful detachment of someone who's been trained not to judge. Osin was coherent, she noted. Not delusional in the traditional sense. He could discuss current events, perform cognitive tests, engage in normal conversation. But when asked about the incident, he became fixated. "The trees," he told her. "In Sector 19K, approximately 47 trees in a stand about 200 meters in diameter. They're all the same." Dr. Volkova asked him to clarify. "Same species, same age." "No," Osin said. "The bark, the pattern on the bark. It's identical, exactly identical. Every ridge, every whorl, every branch scar. I measured them, I photographed them. 17 different trees. The pattern matches perfectly, like fingerprints, except fingerprints don't repeat. Not in nature, not ever." The doctor prescribed rest, observation, and, this part was underlined twice, recommended that someone verify his findings before releasing him back to duty. Professional due diligence. But you could read between the lines. She believed him. Or, at least believed he believed himself. Page 3 was where it stopped being a psychiatric case and became something else. A second survey team was dispatched to Sector 19K on October 20th. Independent verification, different personnel. Standard ecological assessment with specific instructions to examine the tree stand Osin had documented. Team lead, Dr. Mikhail Graykov, forestry biologist, 15 years of field experience. The kind of man who'd seen every normal variation nature produces. His report was 3 pages long. I've read it 11 times now. Each time, I find new details I missed before. Or maybe they weren't there before. I'm not sure anymore. Dr. Graykov's team reached the site on October 21st. Found the stand immediately. 47 trees, as Osin had reported. Predominantly larch, some Siberian pine. ages ranging from approximately 60 to 80 years based on diameter. Nothing remarkable about their distribution or health. But the bark, Verkhoyansk included photographs. Black and white, grainy, the way field documentation looked in 1979. I've stared at these photographs until my eyes hurt. Each image shows a close-up of bark texture on a different tree, marked with a numbered tag. Tree 1, Tree 2, Tree 3. The patterns are identical, not similar, identical. Every ridge, every furrow, every discontinuity matches exactly, like someone had taken a single tree and copied it 47 times. But these were living trees. Different diameters, different heights, different amounts of lichen growth. They couldn't be clones. They'd grown independently over decades, yet the bark was the same. Verkhoyangsk's report tried to rationalize it. Unusual pattern consistency, possibly due to shared genetic material from a single parent tree, though this would be unprecedented in natural reproduction. Bark texture typically varies even among direct offspring. Further samples required for laboratory analysis. He took core samples, 5 trees, drilled into the heartwood, extracted cylinders of tissue for analysis. Standard forestry practice. Count the rings, measure growth rates, determine age and health. The samples arrived at the Yakutia Forestry Institute on October 24th. Dr. Irina Morozova, dendrochronologist, conducted the analysis. Her report is on page 6, and it's where my hands started shaking even though I didn't know why yet. The core samples showed normal ring structure. Annual growth patterns consistent with regional climate data. Ages ranging from 58 to 74 years, all perfectly normal. Except when she placed the samples side by side under magnification, something became apparent. The ring patterns weren't just similar, they were identical. Year by year, ring by ring, the growth patterns matched exactly. Same width, same density, same anomalies, as if all 5 trees had experienced the exact same environmental conditions for their entire lives. But they were spread across 200 meters of varying terrain. Different sun exposure, different soil moisture, different wind patterns. They should have developed differently. Dr. Morozova's conclusion, written in careful scientific language, results suggest shared physiological response to environmental factors. Mechanism unknown. Recommend expanded sampling and genetic analysis to determine relationship between specimens. That was October 25th. On October 27th, Dr. Verkhoyansk's team returned to the site to collect additional samples. They brought better equipment this time. Proper photography gear, measuring instruments, sample containers. They were going to document this properly, systematically, build a case study. Page 7 is Dr. Verkhoyansk's final report, filed November the 2nd. Status: case closed. Natural phenomenon, no further action required. But buried in the middle, written in that same careful detachment I'd seen in Dr. Volkova's notes, was this. On October 27th, we returned to Sector 19K. The tree stand had increased to 51 specimens. 4 additional trees, previously unmarked and unnoticed, displayed the same bark pattern characteristics. When questioned, all team members insisted these trees were present during the initial survey. No explanation for the oversight. All team members are experienced surveyors. 4 new trees. In 6 days, or 4 trees that had always been there but became visible. The report continued. We collected bark rubbings from all specimens for comparative analysis. During collection, junior surveyor Petrov noted that the bark texture felt wrong. When pressed to elaborate, he described it as too warm, too soft, like touching someone's palm. Temperature measurements showed normal values consistent with ambient conditions. Petrov declined further comment. They left the site on October 28th. Grekhov noted that, as they departed, he looked back at the stand from approximately 1 kilometer distance. The trees appeared to be positioned differently than I remembered. Geometric distribution had changed. I did not mention this observation to the team as I attributed it to fatigue and poor light conditions. The final page was a memo from the Regional Forestry Director to the Ministry of Environmental Resources, dated November 5, 1979. It recommended that Sector 19K be designated as a biological research area and placed under limited access pending further study. The recommendation was denied. Instead, the sector was reclassified as terrain unsuitable for commercial forestry exploitation. The file was closed. No explanation given for why unusual biological phenomena would disqualify land from timber use, but there it was. Official decision, end of story, except there was an addendum, handwritten, not part of the official file but clipped to the back. A note from Dr. Grekhov, dated November 8th. I went back alone, without equipment, without authorization. I needed to see them again, to confirm my observations. The stand had grown to 58 trees. I counted 3 times. The geometric pattern of their distribution was different from both previous surveys. They had moved, or the space between them had changed. I cannot articulate this clearly. I approached tree 1, the first tree Osen documented. I placed my palm against the bark. The ridges matched my fingerprints, not approximately, exactly. Every whorl, every bifurcation, as if the tree had grown a map of my hand. I checked tree 2, same result. My fingerprints, all of them. I ran to my vehicle and drove 4 hours without stopping. I am requesting immediate transfer. I do not believe this is a natural phenomenon. I believe it is responsive, adaptive. I believe it is documenting us. The note was stamped. Transfer approved, effective immediately. I closed the file, made tea, tried to think about it rationally. Obviously, some kind of fungal infection, maybe, that altered bark development in systematic ways, or unusual genetic mutation spreading through root contact. There are logical explanations for pattern repetition in nature. Fractals, Fibonacci sequences, self-similar structures. But fingerprints don't repeat. That's the whole point of fingerprints. I opened the file again, looked at the photographs, started counting trees in each image, trying to verify Grekhov's claim about the changing number. That's when I noticed my own hand resting on the desk beside the photographs. I looked at my fingerprints, then at the bark patterns in the images. They were similar, very similar. The central whorl, the ridge distribution. I told myself I was seeing patterns where none existed. Pareidolia. The human brain finds faces in clouds, patterns in random noise. It's normal, adaptive. But I couldn't stop looking. I photographed my fingerprints with my phone, then photographed the bark patterns from the file, overlaid them on my computer screen. The match wasn't exact, but it was close. Closer than random chance should allow. I started going through my own files, cases I'd worked over the past year, looking for anything else from Sector 19K, any follow-up surveys, any updated documentation, nothing. The region had been surveyed twice since 1979. Both teams reported standard boreal forest composition. No anomalies noted, no mention of the tree stand. I checked the coordinates from Grekhov's report, cross-referenced them with current forestry maps. The area was marked as low-density mixed forest. Unremarkable. No special designations. I called the Yakutsk Forestry Institute. Asked about Dr. Morozova. Retired in 1987, they said. Moved to Moscow. Dr. Grekhov? Transferred to desk work in 1980. Died in 1993. Victor Osin, the original surveyor? No records after his hospitalization in 1979. Dead ends. Everyone who'd seen the trees was gone or silent. I should have left it there, filed my report, moved to the next case. But here's what I couldn't explain. That night, I dreamed about trees. Specifically, I dreamed about standing in a forest where every tree had my face pressed into the bark. Not carved, grown, organic, natural. My features stretched vertically along the trunk, eyes closed, mouth open as if breathing. I woke up at a 3 whoa and couldn't go back to sleep. Friday morning, I went to see Dr. Volkova. She was still practicing, still at the same hospital in Yakutsk. 81 years old now, but sharp. She remembered Osin immediately. The surveyor who destroyed his hands, she said. Yes, I think about him sometimes. He was transferred to Moscow for continued care. But before he left, he told me something. He said the trees were growing faster, that when he first noticed the pattern, there were 47 trees. By the time he started measuring them the next day, there were 49. He thought he'd miscounted. But then he checked his notes. He'd documented every tree, tagged them. The tags didn't move. New trees appeared between them. She paused, looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. You've read the file, she said. So you know what happened to the second team. Dr. Grekhov's observation about the trees moving. I spoke with him once, after his transfer. He said the trees weren't spreading. They were filling in, completing a pattern. He showed me his sketches. The distribution of the trees formed a shape, like a fingerprint whorl but scaled up, hundreds of meters across. And as new trees appeared, the pattern became clearer, more detailed. He believed it would keep growing until the pattern was complete. Complete? I asked. He didn't know. But he calculated that at the rate of growth, the pattern would require approximately 400 trees, maybe more, covering several kilometers, a fingerprint the size of a valley. I asked her if anyone had checked recently, if the forest was still growing. She smiled. Not a happy smile. The smile of someone who knows more than they're saying. Every few years, someone notices, she said. A surveyor, a geologist, someone working in that region. They come back talking about strange trees, identical patterns. Then the file gets closed, they get transferred, and it's forgotten again, until the next person notices. How many? I asked. I've seen 12 reports over 40 years. Probably more that never made it to psychiatric evaluation. The trees keep growing, the pattern keeps filling in, and every person who observes it closely enough, they become part of the documentation. She reached into her desk, pulled out an old photograph, handed it to me. It showed her hand. Palm up, clear fingerprints visible. Beside it, a bark rubbing. The patterns matched exactly. I went there once, she said, in 1981, to see for myself, to understand what had traumatized my patient. I touched one tree, just one. This was the result. Are they still there? I asked. The trees with your fingerprints? I don't know. I've never gone back. But sometimes I dream about them growing taller, the bark spreading. My fingerprints stretched over entire trunks, visible from kilometers away, and in the dreams I understand what they're for. She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. I left Yakutsk that afternoon, told my supervisor I needed to verify some details, filed a travel authorization for Sector 19K. He approved it without reading it carefully. Standard field verification. Happens all the time. I reached the coordinates on Sunday. Hired a local guide, a Yakut hunter who knew the terrain. He drove me within a kilometer of the site, then refused to go further. Bad forest, he said. Animals don't go there. Birds don't nest there. Nothing lives there except the trees. I went alone, found the stand in 20 minutes. It's hard to miss. The trees are taller than the surrounding forest. Perfectly straight. No branch growth below 10 meters. They rise like pillars. There were hundreds of them. I counted 60 before I gave up. They stretched across the valley floor in precise geometric distribution. And yes, the bark patterns were identical. Every tree. The same complex whirl of ridges and furrows repeating endlessly. I approached the nearest tree, removed my glove, placed my palm against the bark. It was warm, not tree warm, body warm. And the texture, Dr. Volkova was right. It felt like skin. The ridges under my fingertips felt like touching someone else's hand. I pulled back, looked at my palm. The bark had left marks. Fine red lines like capillaries, tracing the pattern of my fingerprints. I checked another tree. Same warmth, same texture. But this time, when I pulled my hand away, I noticed something. The bark pattern had changed slightly. A new ridge had appeared. Subtle, but matching the shape of my thumbprint exactly. I documented it, photographed it, measured it. Did everything Grekov and Osin had done. Then I walked deeper into the stand. The trees weren't randomly distributed. They formed a pattern. From ground level, you couldn't see it, but I climbed a ridge above the valley and looked down. The trees formed a fingerprint. A massive fingerprint, hundreds of meters across. Each tree was a ridge. Each gap between trees was a furrow. The entire stand was a single pattern scaled up to geological proportions. And it wasn't complete yet. The edges were still sparse. Gaps where new trees would grow. I stayed there for an hour, watching. And maybe it was the light, or fatigue, or fear. But I swear the gaps were smaller when I left than when I arrived. I returned to my vehicle. The guide was waiting, nervous. He asked if I'd found what I was looking for. I said yes. He asked what it was. I showed him my palm. The red lines were still there, darker now, branching, following the precise pattern of my fingerprints. He crossed himself. Old gesture. Pre-Soviet. He said something in Yakut that I didn't understand, then translated, "The forest remembers." I'm back in my office now, Tuesday morning. The red lines on my palm haven't faded. They've spread. Up my fingers, across my wrist. Fine red tracery, following every whorl and ridge of my skin. I've tried washing them. They don't wash away. They're not on my skin, they're in my skin, and last night I dreamed about trees again. But this time, I wasn't looking at them. I was inside one, looking out through bark, feeling roots spread through soil, sensing others around me. Hundreds of us, all connected, all carrying the same pattern. I checked satellite imagery of Sector 19K this morning. Historical comparison. The stand has grown by approximately 15% in the last 5 years. New trees appearing at the edges, filling in the pattern. I counted the trees in my dream. 407. The pattern is almost complete. I don't know what happens when it finishes. When every ridge and whorl has been translated from human scale to forest scale. When the fingerprint is perfect. But I know I'll be there to see it. Because the red lines on my skin, they're not marking me. They're documenting me, integrating me into the pattern. And when the forest calls, When the pattern demands completion, I'll go back. I'll touch the trees again, and maybe I won't come back, or maybe I will, just not in a form you'd recognize. The file is still on my desk. I've been documenting everything, adding my observations to the record. But I know what will happen. The file will be closed. I'll be transferred or forgotten. And in a few years, someone else will open it. Read about the trees. Feel the curiosity that ate Osen and Grekov and Dr. Volkova. And they'll go see for themselves. That's how it spreads. Not through seeds or spores. Through documentation. Through the irresistible human need to verify, to witness, to understand. The trees don't need to move. They don't need to hunt. They just need to be observed, documented, remembered, and then they grow. One tree for every person who touches them. One tree for every fingerprint they collect. 407 trees, almost complete. I wonder whose fingerprint it is.